and the legal aid board lawyers, aid was suddenly withdrawn 6 months before coming to court. Brian Deer now appears and interviews a mother of one of the Lancet 12 children. He falsely represented himself as Brian Lawrence, interested in deciding whether the Sunday Times should support reinstatement of legal aid in the MMR cases. Here is Brian Deer. The next day, the interviewed mother was clearly upset and wrote to the Sunday Times to complain. She is both surprised and shocked, little short of interrogation from the outset, kept turning the same tape over every time it ran out, no human qualities of compassion, to abuse my hospitality, totally insensitive questioning, repeatedly displayed arrogance, a dangerous bigotry and clear ignorance, besmirching the integrity and competence of everyone concerned with the MMR cases, more akin to gutter press. I remained deeply shocked. He was neither well-informed nor particularly intelligent. And here are some comments about parents of autistic children attributed to Brian Deer. The festering nastiness, the creepy repetitiveness, the Weasley deceitful obsessiveness all signal pathology to me, and they wonder why their children have problems with their brains. And here's the reference for those attributions. Here is the Sunday Times from February 2004. The Sunday Times investigates, exposes scientists' fatal conflict of interest. Here is more of that report. The next month, 10 of the 13 co-authors signed a letter retracting an interpretation of the paper that vaccines caused autism, which the paper never did claim. 3 refused to sign the retraction for something the paper never said: Andrew Wakefield, John Walker Smith, and Simon Murch. And these 3 were later brought up on charges before the General Medical Council. Brian Deer sent a letter to the General Medical Council. He claimed a scheme beginning in 1996 in which others were enticed by Dr. Wakefield into offering the children of the Lancet 12 for medical experimentation involved in the study. Articles appear in the medical literature confirming the associations found in the Lancet 1998 article. Bad press about the MMR continued. A researcher in the United States presented findings supporting an association between measles virus and bowel disease in autistic children. The case of Michelle Cedillo was heard by the vaccine court. Brian Deer was involved, as we have discussed. In the United Kingdom, the General Medical Council case against Andrew Wakefield, John Walker Smith, and Simon Murch begins and will last almost 3 years. A Department of Health official communicates with the General Medical Council and encourages a strong prosecution. The General Medical Council trial actually had no complainants. No harm came to the children studied, and the parents supported John Walker Smith and Andrew Wakefield throughout the trial, reporting their children had medically benefited from the treatment they received, and Brian Deer was considered an informant and was not called to testify. In the United States, the vaccine court ruled against the autism test cases of Cedillo, Hazelhurst, and Snyder. The executive chairman of News International, the business that owns the Times, was appointed to the board of GlaxoSmithKline. News International publishes more articles attacking Andrew Wakefield's integrity. In England, on January 28, 2010, the General Medical Council ruled against Andrew Wakefield, stating that he had failed in his duties as a responsible consultant, acted dishonestly and irresponsibly against the interests of his patients, and performed dangerous and experimental procedures on autistic children. Almost immediately, the Lancet retracts the Wakefield paper based on the belief that the Lancet 12 were not consecutively referred and that the investigations did not have proper ethical approval, both of which, by the way, have been proven to be groundless, Dr. Wakefield and John Walker Smith are struck off the United Kingdom Medical Register, meaning they lose their license to practice medicine. Articles continue to appear claiming an association between autism and vaccination. Dr. Wakefield, now living in Texas, filed suit against Brian Deere for defamation. The suit was filed claiming the Texas long-arm statute provided jurisdiction, but the court dismissed the suit. In England, John Walker Smith, senior co-author of the 1998 Lancet article, had been able to appeal in a court of law the General Medical Council decision. It was cost prohibitive for Andrew Wakefield, with the cost estimated to be more than $500,000. All of the charges against John Walker Smith were dismissed, and his license was reinstated. The judge ruled that the General Medical Council ruling cannot stand. I therefore quash it. Inadequate and superficial reasoning, wrong conclusions, numerous and significant inadequacies, fundamental errors, inappropriately rejected evidence. He basically chastised the General Medical Council for incompetence in their initial rulings. Both charges upon which the Lancet editors based the retraction of the study were dismissed. However, the Lancet has not reinstated the paper. The court ruled that the Lancet 12 children were in fact consecutively referred. It also found that the medical procedures used in the study were clinically indicated and did not require special approval from an ethics committee. An Italian court has awarded damages to a family, ruling that the MMR caused autism and bowel disease, just as described in the Lancet article. British lawyers who had brought suit for families claiming MMR damage were sued for profiting from a hopeless case. The suit was dropped, but the threat of suit might dissuade further legal actions about the MMR. In the United States, the CDC whistleblower stated publicly that the CDC had purposefully omitted data showing an MMR autism connection. And that brings us to the present. And in the last 30 years, the autism rate has climbed from about 1 in 10,000 to about 1 in 50. How should a medical provider respond to a patient who says, Andrew Wakefield is not a fraud, he is a hero? What is going on today? Brian Deere continues to attack the reputation of Dr. Wakefield. His articles make claims that are demonstrably false, and yet he persists in making these claims and still has them on his website. The accusations that Dr. Wakefield recruited patients involved in a lawsuit, performed non-indicated invasive procedures, and fabricated data are completely unfounded. No harm came to the children studied, and the parents reported their children benefited from the treatment they received. A British judge has ruled that the reasons for the retraction of the 1998 Lancet article were baseless. The noted associations of bowel disease and autism have been supported, and concerns about the MMR remain. What was accomplished by the vilification of Andrew Wakefield? It did divert attention from the fact that the British Department of Health had approved, and a British pharmaceutical company produced, a problematic MMR Irabi vaccine and continued its use for 4 years despite evidence of harm. It diverted attention from the fact that after withdrawal of the vaccine in Britain, the vaccine continued to be distributed outside the country, as evidenced by the Brazilian experience. Merck and GlaxoSmithKline, defendants in the litigation for families claiming vaccine-injured children, benefited by having a possible vaccination autism link discredited and the litigation dismissed. The editor of the Sunday Times and the chief executive officer of the publisher of the Lancet became board members of GlaxoSmithKline. Andrew Wakefield was and is blamed for raising unfounded concerns about a safe vaccine, although concerns were there long before the Lancet article and his comments to the press. He has been blamed for a measles outbreak, but it was the British Department of Health that removed the option for single vaccines. The defamation was successful in stopping him from researching vaccine harm in Britain and in destroying his credibility in the press and media and discrediting him as an expert witness. Can we blame one British researcher for causing the concern about the MMR? Has he proven to be a fraud? Looking at the evidence, I must now agree with my patient that Andrew Wakefield is not a fraud, and if I ever meet Dr. Wakefield, I will give him my apology for having said so. Autism, why not more alarm? The autism rate has increased from about 1 in 10,000 to about 1 in 50 in the last 30 years. Why isn't there more urgency to find the cause of this devastating increase? What factor or combination of factors is causing this? The apparent lack of urgency in seeking the cause is very troubling. We don't know the reason for the increase in autism. Among the proposed factors contributing to the increase in autism are the increase in vaccines, the changing diagnostic criteria, the increase in pesticide exposure in our food, specifically glyphosate, Roundup, in large part due to its use on GMO crops, or the increase in exposure to industrial chemicals. Here is a graph of autism prevalence over time. And parents are seeing posters like this. No wonder they are worried. The United States gives more vaccines than other countries on this list and has the highest autism rate and the highest mortality for children less than 5. Respect the parents who question us. How should we respond to parents who do not want to follow our vaccine recommendations? Should we be less dogmatic in some of our stances? Do we really need to give an aluminum-containing hepatitis B vaccine to newborns before they leave the hospital? How strongly should we recommend all children get the HPV vaccine series? What other questions should we ask ourselves about vaccines? Parents are dealing with a barrage of conflicting information and recommendations. Our track record as physicians is not without error. Can we recognize that parents are motivated to protect their children and are making efforts to process the evidence they see about how to keep their children safe? We may disagree with them, but we should not disrespect their sincerity or denigrate their concerns. I respect Gandhi, even though I don't agree with everything he said. We can respect parents despite disagreement on the issue of vaccines. I'll now give you a list of resources I used to make this presentation. If you want to learn more about the vaccine court, the first book is a good choice. The second book deals with the influence of industry on research and the resulting bias. It also includes a good summary of the case of Andrew Wakefield. Dissolving Illusions is a very thought-provoking book and presents a strong case that vaccines are not the primary reason for the declines in disease we have seen. The last book is by Andrew Wakefield and details and documents his experiences. You might categorize these as anti-vaccine websites, but they do contain information challenging our vaccine recommendations. I think we should all watch the first video. It is a congressional staff briefing on the vaccine court. Dr. Suzanne Humphries has a series of thought-provoking videos that are worth watching. The last video on this page is very disturbing. It is the lack of access to the Vaccine Safety Data Link database and the behavior of the CDC. There are several videos with Dr. Andrew Wakefield. The last video is with Robert Kennedy Jr. on the problems with thimerosal. The information in this video challenged some of my own long-held beliefs about vaccines. Perhaps it has challenged some of yours. In any case, I sincerely thank you for your attention.